Well, look, I remember being quite surprised by it. The funny thing, I was approached to be a garbage man on that film as a kid when Michael Hutchence was still going to be starring in it. And I was offered a point. They couldn't pay me any money, but they were going to give me a point in the film's back end, as it's called. And I said, no, look, I need the money. And if I'd taken that role, I probably would have been able to buy a house in Bondi with the money. It was an astonishing hit. And I think it was just so brave, courageous and fun. Let's face it, it was a great journey, great company. And it was basically about a gay man coming out to his son. And I think because of that, a lot of nanas and basically the suburbs could relate to it.
And as Stefan was pointing out there, sadly, at that time, back in the late 80s, early 90s, it was a pretty dangerous place in some parts of Australia to be a gay person.
Look, I think it still is in some places. It's appropriate that we're talking about it today, that it's State of Origin Day, because in a funny way, I mean, in terms of broad culture, we watch the footy show and Fatty Vaughton dresses up in drag most weeks, from what I can see. But when this film came out, it was like a Trojan horse for the drag movement and for the gay movement broadly. They'd been living in clandestine clubs, and it was just a gradual coming out for Australia. And I think the culture itself kind of responded to Priscilla, and I think it was just an easy way of kind of recognising that we'd been doing the wrong thing, and just that you could just feel the kind of white-knuckled tension of homophobia kind of just relaxing a little bit in our culture.
We're showing some clips of the documentary as we speak to you, and of course you spoke to some of the stars, Hugo Weaving, Guy Pearce and of course the fabulous Terence Stamp. It struck me that it looked like a fun film to be made, or the making of the film was quite fun. Was that what you came across in making this doco?
Oh, look, they looked like they had a riotous time. And when we interviewed, when Alex Barry, the co-director, writer, and myself interviewed Terence Stamp and we filmed him, you could feel that it had this enormous impact on his career. For Hugo Weaving, what a guy. Like, Hugo and Guy really made that film. They just went, right, we're going for this. And they trusted Stefan. And I think Stefan was able to kind of hit on this chakra point of the culture. And look, maybe it's not the most brilliant film of all time, but it really captured us, and it captured the world. You know, like, they got a huge standing ovation in Cannes. It was just the idea of what they'd come up with. And the funny thing in the film is that the original drag queens said, oh, 3 drag queens in a bus on the way to Alice Springs, they'd murder each other by the time they got to Redfern. This show will never work.
Never a true story told. Hey, and Paul, when it came down to who you wanted to be narrator, there was really only one choice, wasn't there? Absolutely. To be in a room with Terence Stamp and to watch his performing power. He did each of the pieces to camera in one take when we were recording with him. And but he came in, he was in a pair of Birkenstocks, an old pair of tracky dacks and a lamb's wool jacket. And your eye kind of travelled up and went, who's this? Terence, how are you? And like, when he got behind the microphone, he really was like this Burton-esque, powerful character. Paul, it's a great film, obviously, and a great doco you've put together. Thanks very much for coming on and having a chat about it.
Thank you, Michael. Cheers.
And Between a Frock and a Hard Place airs tomorrow night on ABC TV at 8:30.